Hey everyone, it's Michael GoosebumpsFan. Today I have another book review for you now that I'm back from my honeymoon. I made a nice little 20-minute long video for you guys to have some good recommendations from Tennessee and the kind of food that we ate out there and everything, and my sweet wife, new wife Rachel, because I have a ring. I have a ring now, guys. The one ring to rule them all. Anyway, I read Goosebumps HorrorLand number 8, Say Cheese and Die Screaming. And I will have my review up for this in just a moment because we're going to start with... We first started this little trilogy of Say Cheese and Die books over the many years that Goosebumps has been coming out with Say Cheese and Die, one of the first early Goosebumps books to ever come out in the classic series. This is my reissue copy, one of the first reissues that ever came out. Really liked this book a lot. I thought it was very dark, very cool. Then you had the second book that I finished like the week of my wedding week, a couple of weeks back, Say Cheese and Die Again. And it was okay. It was not great. It was kind of a little bit of a mess. It wasn't horrible, but it was a miss. Now you have this one, Say Cheese and Die Screaming. And this is a Goosebumps HorrorLand book. For anybody who doesn't know about these books, you have about 100 pages of an actual regular story called Say Cheese and Die Screaming. Then you have a tie-in story tying into the previous books before this and a couple after this, called the HorrorLand story, where you'll have like Carly Beth from The Haunted Mask, and you'll have different characters, Molly and Brittany and Molly, I believe is their names, from the Goosebumps HorrorLand number 1, called Revenge of the Living Dummy. A lot of different characters that have been involved in trying to escape this Horrorland theme park from, of course, One Day at Horrorland, the old classic book series, or book from the old classic series. And this tie-in story was a little bit stronger than it has been in previous books, I do have to say that. So pretty much the last 30 or 40 pages of this book is dedicated to the Horrorland story. Again, that first 80 to 90, 100 pages, somewhere in there, is pretty much its own secluded story that kind of talks a little bit, because the main character goes to Horrorland, gets involved with that whole thing going on. I don't spoil things in my reviews for anybody who doesn't know, who happens to be new here, so there you go. We're almost at 800 subscribers, by the way. That's kind of interesting, kind of surprising. I don't know how we got here, but we're here, and thank you guys. Say Cheese and Die Screaming. What is this book about? Kind of like in the vein of the first two books, almost closer to the second book than the first book. Essentially, we have a character here named Julie. Julie is a sort of kind of photographer for her school. She wants to take the big photos for the yearbook this year. There's kind of a competition guy, I think his name was David or something, and it's kind of a kid that has a snobby, snotty attitude, you know, just that kid you want to punch in the nose. And he kind of wants to take her thunder, essentially. Well, she gets to go to a garage sale, and she finds a camera out there. The woman that's selling the camera does not want to sell the camera. She's like, no, that wasn't up for sale, put it back. Apparently her daughter kind of talks Julie into taking the camera anyway and getting out of there. So Julie does, and as she takes pictures with this camera, she starts to notice bad things in the photos. One I thought was kind of interesting, in the actual Horrorland section, it involves Slappy. That was a very cool little thing that popped up there, a little cameo from my little fella ventriloquist dummy Slappy. But mostly, the things happening in this book with the pictures that Julie happens to be seeing coming out of the camera, just like in the previous two books, stuff happens that affects reality. We don't know if the camera's causing things to happen, or if it's predicting the future. We don't really know. And this book kind of covers that a little bit too. This story started out really strong. I really liked Say Cheese and Die Screaming for the most part. I liked the history of the camera that's here that I don't think is the same camera from the first two stories. It might be, it might not be. It doesn't really matter. But it would be cool if it was the exact same camera. But the story about this camera in this book that's talked about, involving the title Say Cheese and Die Screaming, is kind of cool. I like it a little bit. It's not great. This book itself is kind of lackluster. I feel like the finale is a little okay. It's a little average, not really the best. The scares here are not amazing. There's a couple of cool things here that I like that are definitely better and improvement-wise compared to Say Cheese and Die Again, the second book in the series. So I don't really have a whole lot to say about it. It's kind of just a whatever thing. It's kind of like Say Cheese and Die Again in the sense of it's not really anywhere near as good as the first book was. The first book, Say Cheese and Die, is, to me, a Goosebumps classic. To me, a children's horror classic. It's a fantastic book, super creepy, super dark, especially. Just a really dark story. Even the TV adaptation is pretty dark itself compared to most of the episodes of that show. And I feel like these other two books, Say Cheese and Die Again and Say Cheese and Die Screaming, don't even hold a candle to that. And that's kind of a shame, personally, because I really was hoping it'd be as good, if not better, than the first book. And I knew that the second book was not supposed to be, because a lot of people said that. I don't consider that book completely horrible, but this book was just kind of It was what it was. I don't know if I like this more than Say Cheese and Die Again. I kind of do, because it was a little bit more serious. A little bit. The second book was more of a big goof. The first book was so dark, the second book is kind of silly and cartoonish in a lot of ways. This book is kind of almost in the middle of those two. Almost. Julie was likable, I guess. The characters are kind of okay, like they typically are with Goosebumps. They're all kind of the same reused type of characters over and over again. It was mostly fun. Nobody really got on my nerves, as far as I remember. I don't really remember anything in particular being horrifying here, but it was okay. And like I said, the HorrorLand section was a big step up from a lot of the previous couple of books that had HorrorLand sections from what I remember. It had some interesting things. Like I said, the Slappy cameo was really cool. It wasn't like a him talking type of thing, but it had to involve with the camera and stuff. I don't want to really get too much involved with that. It's kind of just a bunch of kids still running away like it has been this entire time. I gotta admit, by this point, I don't think I've said this in previous book reviews for HorrorLand books, like when I read They Call Me, or My Friends Call Me Monster, whatever the previous book was that I reviewed from the HorrorLand series. I don't think I mentioned this yet, but I'm kind of getting burnt out of this whole HorrorLand story thing. I know it's supposed to tie into a nice bow at the end of the HorrorLand franchise at like book 18 or 19 or 20, whatever book it's supposed to be, that ends this whole era of Goosebumps. But right now, I have to be honest, I'm getting burnt out on the HorrorLand series tie-in things. They're really not all that engaging. I feel like maybe it'd be a little bit better if I was reading each book week by week, you know, reading one book a week from this or something. Maybe it'd be better. I don't really know. I don't really want to read it that way. I just don't feel like it'd be any better for whatever reason, but I'm having an okay time. It was a big improvement, I think, when it comes to the HorrorLand section. It was pretty fun. The camera stuff was not extremely involved here, but it was nice. Julie's part of the story is kind of interesting. I like how she got involved with Carly Beth and all those folks that have been in the books previously, and these little tie-in 40-page or so chapters, the HorrorLand sections, whatever you want to call these in these books. That was nice. But overall, this book was just kind of okay. It was a decent read. I didn't have the best time. It was fine. I feel like there was something else I'm forgetting here. I'm going to read a couple of things really quick in the back of the book, just to make sure I'm not forgetting anything. I kind of think that the very last thing, the very last chapter of this book, the main storyline, the 100-page story of Say Cheese and Die Again, or Screaming, excuse me, I feel like that story itself is not, it doesn't have the best ending. That last chapter kind of sucks, just a little bit. The finale is pretty good in the book. That last chapter, it's kind of one of those things like Slappy's Nightmare from the Series 2000 line. It's not really all that great. It doesn't really fit into what I want it to be. But overall, when it comes to Goosebumps HorrorLand number 8, Say Cheese and Die Screaming, I don't hate the book by any means. I don't want you to think this is a terrible book. You might like it a lot more than I do. It's okay. It was a fine read. I enjoyed it. I read it on my little honeymoon vacation thing. I needed a vacation so desperately, not only from YouTube, but from life in my area in Virginia. Just needed some breathing room, and it was nice. So I hope that maybe if you read this, you'll like it more than I did. I thought it was okay. Kind of a little bit better than the second book, not really. Sort of, kinda. But the first book's still the best, hands down, compared to this, no matter what we say. I would be surprised if anybody read this book and said they thought it was better than the first book. I could see many people saying they like this better than the second book. I don't know. But Say Cheese and Die Screaming, what did you think about it? Put your thoughts and comments down below. I would love to hear what you have to say about this, guys. Anyway, if I had to rate this book on a 5-star basis, I feel like I'd give it about a 3 out of 5 stars. It's very average, but at least it was good. At least the HorrorLand section, I like choked for a second there. It's why it sounded like a little bit of a gargling noise. Excuse me. I don't know if you heard that or not. I don't know. But Say Cheese and Die Screaming, pretty average. Pretty average. I'm glad the HorrorLand section, like I said, is a little bit better. It seems more of an improvement compared to what we've had of just draggy nonsense. It's still kind of draggy nonsense in hindsight, but it's still decent compared to what we've been getting from these. So this era hasn't really provided what I think it should have. Some of the stories have been great, like Creep from the Deep. That's a fantastic book. The Revenge of the Living Dummy, the first book of this HorrorLand series era, whatever, has been really great. Really great first book. First couple of books, because Creep from the Deep is book number 2. Really great couple of books from the beginning of this series, and after that it's been kind of a downhill slope. Monster Blood for Breakfast was pretty bad. There's been a lot of rough ones here. So, Say Cheese and Die Screaming is not the worst of the series, in my opinion, so far, but it certainly ain't great. It's certainly not possibly the best of the Say Cheese and Die trilogy of books that we have currently, unless it becomes a quadrilogy at some point, which I doubt. Good books, fun books, but that's all they pretty much are. They're not going to teach you a life lesson by any means. Maybe the first book. Maybe the first book. Maybe not the second and third, though. Anyway, what did you think about it? Put your thoughts and comments down below. Again, I give it a 3 out of 5 stars for this book. Pretty solid, not great. Let me know in the comment section down below. I forgot to say this in my previous review or video from coming back from the honeymoon and stuff. What do you think about this new review era? I mean, I'm in a new place. I'm in an apartment, so it's kind of one of those things I don't really know where to go in the apartment, that I'm out of my wife Rachel's hair. So this is a new place to record at. Let me know what you think about this space. I don't really have anywhere else to go, so I'm trying to figure out some new areas I could try to work at or work in this place. Let me know all that down below, what you think about this, the book, all that stuff. Anyway, thank you for watching. God bless you guys, and goodbye.